Okay, so in this one, I just quickly wanted to show a little trick that I use all the time, and I like to call it the trick of halves or dividing in halves, or we can say trick of dividing in halves. So what does this mean is that whenever we are doing any animation, let's take an example of the basic animation, and we can move on to more advanced animation. So let's take an example. If there is a ball and then it is starting from here and it needs to go to here, and then once we figure out the timing of it, like the time it would take from here to here, let's say uh, the starting position, the ending position are already fixed, and let's say if it takes 10 frame 10 frames to go from here to here, and then the thing is the complex thing that arises where to place this ball, or like where to place a pose, like if it is going from this pose to some pose over here, like somewhat like a this pose or something. So if this character is going from this pose to this pose, so we have the starting pose, we have the ending pose, but then the thing is, once we figure out like okay, we can have like 10 frames to go from this to this, then we need to figure out what poses would be there in the middle of this pose A to pose B. So I use a really easy trick that helps me all the time for this, and that is like dividing in the half. So this is the starting, this is the ending, so we divide it in the half, and then we keep on dividing. We move away from this thing towards the extreme. So let's say this is the extreme pose, right? The extreme storytelling or the key pose. So these both are the extreme poses, this one and this one. And then the trick is to create a pose in middle, right in the middle, and then to go towards the extreme from that pose and keep dividing in half till you reach that pose. And let's say if this was at frame 1 and this was at frame 10, so let's say we just put it in like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. We have over there, we have this over here. So let's say we put it in the middle, 1 2 3 1 2 3 4, and then that's another thing, like try to have this thing instead of 10, have it like a 9 or a 11, so that you can divide it in the half. It doesn't matter, like it doesn't make that much of a difference. One frame doesn't make that much of a difference, and obviously in professional animation it does, but then in starting it doesn't make that much of a difference. So always prefer to have this in these kind of numbers. And then let's say if this is 11, so that we can place this at 6. So we have this at frame 6, so we place a ball at frame 6, so that we can like divide it 6 7 8 9 10, and then again towards this thing we are just dividing in half, like 6, then it would be 5, it would be 4, it would be 3, it would be 2, and then it would be 1, so that we don't have to figure out, you don't have to even think about this thing, and you can animate without even like thinking about this thing. So that if this is in the middle, then obviously this would be over here, 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 so it would be moving towards the extreme, and just keep dividing it in half, and then it works 90% of time. This thing works. So it is pretty neat trick that I use all the time. And then this is the super basic example. And then for the ball mounts it is exactly the same. I can obviously show that doing that in the 2D version, 2D test, and then the 3D test, and then I can show the complex mechanics shot too using the same principle. That's it's funny, it works all the time. So that if this is the extreme, let's say if this ball is going up, and for now for the basic one, we are not talking about the stretch and squash, and we'll cover about this thing in the next example. So this is the A position. It goes up from this, and then again it is coming down to this thing. And then let's say this is the top position, this is the peak. So what we will do is, this is the line, and then we'll just start from here, and then this is the extreme, right? So this is gonna fight the gravity, and as they say, there would be a hang time. That means it would hang on the top. Like for me, I don't know about like you, but for me, these complex principles like ease in and ease out, and then timing, spacing, doesn't make that much sense to me. Like it feels that we are like just overcomplicating what doesn't need to, like like we are just overcomplicating a concept, a easy concept which is like super easy. And if we use these terms and all, it's great, like all the principles are great and we need to use this thing, but to understand these things better in a practical way, it is even better to like just figure out, like reinvent these things yourself, like figure out a way that works best for you. Like I don't use these terms, but then I have these concepts, so that this half concept, dividing in half, so that like if I'm going towards up, then my life gets like so much easier by using this thing. So obviously we know this thing, this top position, this bottom position, and then we are just dividing in half. So this is the half, this is the half, this is the half, this is the half, this is the half. And it does not matter if you have 10 frames, 20 frames, 30 frames, or how many frames, or just like 5 frames. It does not matter how many frames do you have. You just keep on dividing them in the half and placing them in the hair. So now by doing this thing, you don't have to worry about the spacing, because we know where the ball is gonna be, and you don't have to worry about the timing, because we know what frame this is gonna be over here. Like if this is the frame 1, then this is gonna be the frame 2. That's pretty obvious. And then this is gonna be the frame 3, frame 4, frame 5, frame 6, frame 7. And let's say if we are doing this thing for, let's say if we are just doing this thing for 11 frames, 11 frames up, and then it comes down to like 20 or something. So that this is frame 1, and this is frame 11. So obviously it does not matter, this is going to be the 2, this is going to be the 3, this is going to be the 4, and the only difference that it makes is it would be more closer towards the up. Like this would be the 4. It doesn't mean like if we have 11 frames, that doesn't mean like 2 would shift down. No, it would always be in the middle. And then it doesn't mean like there would be no change in the starting frames, like starting poses. There would be no change in that. Like if in this example, if we were taking the example of 11 frames, and then let's take an example. Let's say that we have like if we increase it to 13 frames, that just means that we'll add one frame over here, one extra frame over here, and one extra frame over here, without changing anything in the middle. That means we just, the only thing that needs to change is we need to place one frame, extra frame, towards the extreme, not towards the middle, but towards the extreme, and then one extra frame towards here. And then it would be same. Obviously it would become, the center would become frame 7, because the frame 1 won't change, the frame 11 would obviously become the frame 13, and then it would just shift, like we are adding one here, and then you don't have to change the complete animation, and then you don't have to even like think about the timing and spacing, and you don't have to like think of easing in, easing out once you understand this concept of dividing in the half. And so yeah, we talked about this thing going from here to here, and then we talked about this thing, and then I can give you a couple more example explaining the same thing that would make it even more easier. So yeah, let's say if this is the ball, and this is starting, this is the A, this is the B, like it was in the from this bottom to the top. And let's say, like, let's reinvent the concept of the ease out. So obviously this ball is moving towards that direction, and it is going to reach this pose, and this is the starting pose, this is the ending pose, and this is already fixed, this is already fixed. And then we are given that we need to animate this thing in 11 frames. So what does that mean? Roughly, it would look like, we know roughly it would look like something like this thing, this thing, this thing. But then to like manually figure out this thing, like if you're starting from this thing and then figuring out how far the next ball would be, or how far the next frame would be, like if we are doing this thing, if the character is in a bend pose, and then we are like starting to figure out like he needs to jump or do this crazy extreme pose like here or something. And then we are like, if we are like dealing with this complex issue of like figuring out how far the next pose would be from this pose, then it complicates all the process, which doesn't need to be complicated. This is a key pose, this is a key pose, we are given this key pose, and we know that there are gonna be the 11 frames, so why not just do one in the middle, just do one in the middle, and then figure out all these poses and all these frames and the timing and the spacing and all those complicated things. So we have one in the middle, and then we need something like this, right? Like something like going out from this thing, and then everyone talks about like the spacing increase with the time, the further that gets increases. And for me that is complex. If it works for you, then keep using that, but then I'm just trying to make it a little bit easier for you. So this is one, this is two, this is three, obviously. This is frame one, this is frame 11. So we do one in the middle. And then if we have something like this, we need to create something like this. That means this frame would automatically be frame 10. We don't have to think about that, because we would have one frame before this thing. And then this frame, like on frame 9 we don't have to figure out the timing. On frame 9 it is obviously over here, and then on frame 8 it is because the middle of this and this. And then on frame 8 we don't have to figure out, okay, where should I place this thing on frame 8. We don't have to even like think about that, because on frame 8 it would be over here, and then on frame 7 it would be over here, on frame 6 it would be over here. And see, we'll keep dividing this thing in the half till we reach this extreme pose. And now we are not talking in terms of ease out, ease in, or the timing or the spacing, but we are just using this simple concept of dividing in half and then just using this thing. So it can exactly be used for the reverse of this. If we know we need like some pattern like this thing, so we don't have to figure out, okay, how far should be this, the previous pose should be, and what frame should it be. If we are just moving far from this thing, then it doesn't make sense. It would be always in the half. Like it works 90% of the time, so it would always be in the half. This would be the half. And once you have figured out this thing, keep moving towards half, 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 half. And even if we did this thing for the 11 frame, let's say if there are like 15 frames, that means 11 to 12, 13, 14, 15, we are adding 4 frames. Does it changes our animation? Does it changes what we have already done? No, it does not, because now the extra frames would be added towards the extreme. That means if this was the extreme, that means we are gonna continue dividing it 4 times more to get this thing. So this is how I simplify the timing, spacing, ease in, ease out, and how I don't like think in terms of those principles, but think in terms of dividing it in half. And it works for the complex animation, the easy animation. Obviously, the ball bounce is the base of everything, so it works every time. And you can create a cartoony animation for that with using this thing, and you can do a realistic animation using this thing. And I hope this makes sense. And now we'll jump into a little bit more complex example when we add in the stretch and squash too. So let's say if we are creating a ball bounce, and this is the top which is fixed, this is the bottom which is fixed. Let's say we are experimenting. We are not given any time frame. Let's say if you are a student and you are just like playing around in 2D or in 3D. So obviously you know this thing that in the starting it would be this, and on the top it would be this, and in the end it would be again it would be this. So let's call this A, let's call this B, and let's call this C again. So A and C would be same obviously. And let's experiment with 11 frames up. Let's experiment with 11 frames going up. So with stretch and squash, the only thing that changes is that now this is the base, and now there would be a stretch pose over here. That's the only change. And then now, so if this was frame 1, if this was frame 1, obviously if you are just like starting this thing, so this can be frame 2, like it can obviously, it can just to initiate this thing, this can be a squash and then it can be a stretch. But if we are just going from here to here, just for the sake of example, let's not get overcomplicated right now. We can talk about that thing later on. I can explain that later on. So let's say if we are going from down to up, and so this is the frame 1, this would be the frame 2, and now you need to do the exact same thing. If we are experimenting with 11 frame, then for that it would be frame 11, and you can always all the time change the up position, but then everything over here would remain the same, so that this is frame 1, frame 2, and it would be exact in the middle, exact in the middle, exact in the middle, and then you keep on dividing till you reach the top. Frame 2, then it would be the frame 3, frame 4, frame 5, and then the frame 6, frame 7, and then you keep on dividing in the half till you reach the frame 11. And then what if we have just 7 frames? We were just experimenting with 11 frames, so what if we just have 7 frames to do this thing? So yeah, so everything would remain same. Like frame 1 would remain same, frame 2 would remain same, frame 3 would remain same, 4, 5, 6. The only change would be these extra divided frames. That means obviously we'll have this one, we'll have this one. We'll want to, this would be the 3, this would be the 4, this would be the 5, this would be the 6, and this top would be the 7. So the top one would become the 7 instead of 11, and then we'll remove those nearby frames without changing any of the animation or without getting into any of the complex timing, spacing, easing out, easing in concept. Just keep in mind you got to divide it in half and move away from this and towards the extreme, move towards the extreme. And what if it is coming down? What if it is coming down? I see like a lot of people getting confused, super confused on this thing. And that's that's not worth it. Like you don't have to like think about that thing. So yeah, let's say if this is the end pose, and this was about when it is going up, when it's coming down. So let's say if this is the frame, let's say if this is the frame 7, or let's just simplify, and let's say if we are like starting from the top, so it is frame 1 and this is the frame 7. So what changes would it make? It won't be, there won't be no changes except one. That would be, there would be a stretch just before it lands. So if this was frame 7, that means this would be the frame 6, this would be the 5, this would be the 4, this would be the 3, this would be the 2, and obviously we have the frame 1. So if it is falling out of it, it is moving away from extreme. Or you can think again, like visually it is exactly same as this. So don't need to get confused with all that. It is again like going towards that, because we are again starting from the bottom, right? We are not starting from the top, and we are not like trying to figure out on frame 2, let's figure out timing and then figure out the spacing on frame 2. Where should I place the ball to ease out of this frame? And we are not getting into all that complex stuff, and we are just using this thing. We are like using the reverse. We are using this thing. If 6 is this, 5 would be this, 4 would be this, 3 would be this, 2 would be this, and obviously we have the 1. And again, if this 7 becomes 11, then what does change? What are the changes? Obviously this is the 11. We don't need to change our animation at all. Like obviously this is 11, and if this is 11, this is 11, like we had the 7, and then now it is 8, 9, 10, 11. So we are adding 4 frames towards this direction. That means 4 frames between the frame 1 and frame 2. That means we need to divide 4 times more before we reach the frame 1. We don't need to shift this thing. We don't need to move this thing up or down. We don't need to move any of the animation that we have already done. We don't need to change this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, or any other thing. We just need to add in 4 more frames and divide it in half till we reach this pose, because this is fixed, this is fixed, this is fixed. All the animation that we have done till now at fixed, and then we are just dividing it and moving towards the extreme. So yeah, let's talk about, let's get into even more complexity and more complex stuff. So it's fun. Like the more we get into complex stuff, it gets more fun. Straight line, straight line. Yeah. So yeah, now let's go deeper another level. So this is gonna always be the top. This is gonna be the starting pose. Let's initiate the bounce. Let's initiate the bounce. Like if it has the life of its own, and if this is the frame 1, so obviously we'll have a pose, we'll have a squash, then we'll have a stretch, and then we'll have one in the middle, and one in the middle, one in the middle, and one in the middle, one last in the middle. Let's say we are talking about like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frames. Like if it takes 8 frames to go up, then it would be like this, right? So the only thing that I've added is it would squash before, the basic ball would squash before going into the up direction. And then if it is coming down, then obviously it would this would be the stretch pose. Then before stopping in this position, it would squash before stopping in this position. So let's say like if this was frame 1 and we divide it in half. So it is frame 1 2 3 4 5 6 6 5 4 3 2 1, and then it would be the 7, it would be the 8, and it would come back into its own position. That would be the frame 9. So that's the only change it would make, and then that's it. And let's dive into the 2D test, and let's do a practical experiment of adding in more frames, like just like let's play in 2D a bit. Let's see how this implement. And like if we have a animation, if we have an animation of 9 frames, and if we need to add in like 5 more frames, what changes does it make? Like, let me prove my point that it works all the time, and you can add in more frames or remove the frames. You can make the animation faster, slower, without changing any of the existing animation. I'm going to prove that point in 2D now. So let's dive into the 2D. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do the 2D version. So obviously I don't have anything yet, right? I'm just starting. It is just a blank line that I've created. I'm gonna create this thing from the scratch. So we talked about this thing that in the starting it would be a ball. It would be on the ground. So let's say this is our starting. This is where we are gonna start. This would be our A, and I'm gonna do this example with the basic ball bounce, and then I'm gonna show the complex. I'm gonna get into the complex stuff of like creating this and like adding the hang time and all that to complex stuff, and then like just making a realistic ball bounce, sort of realistic, and then like how to convert it to cartoony. And I'll show the point of dividing it in the half and all that, like stretch and squash and everything. So it is gonna be super fun. So see, on frame 1 we create this thing, and then obviously it is easy to like just copy paste this thing. So I just like to copy paste, and let's say on frame 2 it is on the topmost position. That's it. And then we can add, I can show you exact process how I process and how I make this even like so much easier. So on frame 3 I again, so it is gonna go up, and then it is gonna reach up, and then it is gonna come down. So let's say if they're like and I talked about this thing that this and this it is gonna go up and it is gonna come down. And then another trick I use is there will always be same number of frames between going up and wait a second. I use this to check that if it is in a line or not. So another trick I use is the number of frame the ball would take to go up would be exactly same as the number of frame it takes to come down. That means if it is taking, for now we are just experimenting, so if it is taking 5 frames to go up, then it would take 5 frames to come down. So that's just the trick I use all the time to make it even easier. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Let's add in 5 frames here, 5 frames here. So now you can see this thing visually, like this is 1, and then now this becomes the 6, and this becomes the 11. So this is a 11 frame cycle. So now I talked about this thing that we are gonna move away from this thing towards the extreme, and we are gonna keep on dividing it in half till we reach this thing, the top. And now I'm gonna just show this thing. So this is our base, and I also talked about this thing. You just need to add in like 1 stretch. So let's say this is the stretch, right? So this is the base, this is the stretch, and then 3 4 5, 3 would be exactly in the middle of these two. 4 would be exactly in the middle, 5 would be exactly in the middle. So let's create this thing. Let's see what we get. Let's say this is the 3. Let's say this is the let's say this is the 4. Let's say this is the 5. And then obviously it is exactly similar when it is coming down. So another trick I use for 2D animation is that when it is going up and then it is coming down, so I copy paste everything, all the frames, all the poses that I used before, and it works perfectly fine for me. But I'm gonna sketch over here to just illustrate this point, to explain this thing once again. So this is coming from up to down. So I talked about this thing, the ending pose. There is gonna be a stretch before this thing. So let's say if this is 11, you can see from here it is the 11. So this is gonna be the 10, and then there would be a 9 right in the middle, and then there would be a 8, there would be the 7 in the middle, and then obviously we already have the 6 over here. So we are not gonna figure out like where the frame 7 would be, how far would the frame 7 would be, because it is given, it is already like we already know about that. It is gonna be like if we are moving from here, and then it is obviously gonna fall in the middle, and we don't have to figure out that stuff. That is the cool thing. So now we are not gonna start doing this thing first. You gotta keep this thing in mind. We are not moving from here. We are moving from here. Like first, we are gonna do the stretch pose, right? Because there would be a stretch before landing. So this is the stretch pose, and then we are moving away from this thing. That means right in the middle. So something like this. Let's shift this a bit. And then again right in the middle. And then right in the middle. So I'm doing what I said. And then we reach this thing. So again, if I just scrub through this thing, this is our end obviously. So it would be going up, coming down. Going up, coming down. And then what if obviously 11 frame are like too little to do this kind of ball bounce. So let's say because we are experimenting, let's say you thought that 11 frames are enough and you played it, and then you figured out you need to add in more frames, and then now you are thinking that I need to change the complete animation. But then you don't have to change the complete animation by using this thing. So let's just play, and I know that this is not gonna work. So I'm gonna show how to make it work. See, this is not working. This is just too less of frame. So now let's see how we can make it work. So the first thing is to make this thing work. After doing this thing is to add in more frames between this and this. See, I talked about this thing. If let's say we are expanding this thing from 11 frames to 21 frames. Let's say we are expanding from 11 frames to 21 frames. That's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 more frames. That means we need to add in 5 frames. See, remember, like I talked about this thing, you need to, if you are doing a half, then you need to, and then for like 7 to 15, the difference would be added towards the extreme. So now we are gonna do exactly the same thing and figure out the extreme. The extreme is the 1 at the 6, so we are gonna add in 5 frames to here, and then we are gonna add 5 frames to here, and then see, I'm not gonna change any of the animation, I'm not gonna change any of the animation. And then now it becomes 19 frames, 19 frames animation. So let's see if now what are we gonna do now. Now we are just gonna do 1 2 3 4. We don't have to figure out anything because we were dividing in half when we were moving up, and now we are just gonna keep dividing this thing again in the halves till we reach the top position. Half, 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 half. Obviously it's gonna be a little bit there, right? And then again, keep in mind we are not moving from this but to this. So we are moving from this, from here towards this, from here towards this. So we are gonna, and after a while you can just like copy paste this poses because there won't be that much of a difference. Then you can copy paste and move it slightly up so that it is sort of half, and then you can again copy this thing and do a half, and then you can use this thing and you can like bring this because it is gonna be like similar to that, right? So see, we have done this thing, we have divided this thing in half, and now we are gonna do the same thing. We are moving from this towards that half, 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 and now we have these 1 2 3 4 extra frames, and then we need to figure out what to do in these 4 extra frames, and then we are just gonna do this thing. We are gonna keep dividing it in half till we reach the up position. It shouldn't stop, like it should always be moving towards the top. So now I can copy paste this thing because we are moving towards up direction, right? We can just use this thing because it would be so similar to this thing. See, now we haven't changed anything, the animation, and let's play this thing again. It would work a little bit better. See, it works a little bit better, and the only thing now missing is, now once we have done this thing 19, now we just need to add, let's say if this is loop, so for the top it is working fine, but then when it comes down it is gonna squash. So just before this thing, we are just gonna add in 1 frame of squash, and we can figure out, like, let's see, we are just experimenting with this thing. Consider everything a experiment in 2D. We are not making any change. It is squashing and then it is coming into its own position, right? See, it is so much better. Just adding that 1 frame is so much better. And now what we can do is, we can, to make it even better, we can do, instead of this thing, because we are looping this thing, right? So it is gonna squash, and then from squash to stretch, it is gonna go from squash to stretch, and it is not gonna stop in the middle because we are just looping it. So let's like frame 19, and then let's just keep it a frame 19 cycle, and then on frame 20, instead of this thing, it is gonna be like this thing. Let's see. So it is starting from the stretch, and then this thing from here to here, it would be a little bit off, like going up, sort of like sort of like stretch, but then it like a mix of this thing so that it's like moving. So this gives, I feel it gives a little bit better, like better feel for cartoony animation. Something like this. So it is not exactly the same position. It is not exactly a stretch, but then it is not the base position. It is just what, like a sort of squash and then a stretch so that it goes into planet nicely. Let's do this. So on one, it would be this thing. So it is looping, right? So previously the frame one was similar to this thing, but now I've like removed it and kept it 19 frames cycle. See, moves so much better. And now if you wanna like make it even more cartoony, and if you wanna like increase the timing even more, like you can have like two goals. Either you wanna make it even more cartoony, or you can make you can either you can increase the timing or you can make it even more cartoony. And to do both of the things, you just need to do one thing: figure out the top pose. What was the top pose? Now this is the top pose, and add in more frames. Coming from here, add in 3 frames more, or 5 frames more, 7 frames more, 2 frames more. Don't change any of the animation so that you get this thing. You got to keep exactly same, but then you get a cartoony version of that. See, now it is like hanging for a longer time, and now you get this cartoony feeling to it. And it is same for the jumps. And now see, we didn't have to talk about the hang time or ease out, ease in. We just talked about dividing in half. This is the peaks. Obviously, whenever you add in more frames, it would be before this, after this. So yeah, that's basically it. See now, let's say if you have this animation, and that you gotta like remove the timing of this thing, timing from this thing, and make it shorter. So what are you gonna do? Like, obviously you can add in more frames towards this, moving towards this thing, again dividing in half, or you can just like keep this thing because it is gonna be sort of similar to that. So now let's say, like, if we have, let's take another example. Like if we have 25 frames and then we need to reduce the timing. By doing this thing, we are following this method, and then we need to reduce the timing. So what are we gonna do now? We are gonna delete these frames. We are gonna start deleting these frames. Like let's say we are deleting frame 11, and then we are deleting frame 12. So we have deleted 2 frames so that it becomes a little bit shorter. And then let's play it on, even if we need to make it even more shorter, then we delete 1 frame more just next to this thing. Don't mess up with this thing right now. Delete this frame, delete this frame. Now it becomes 2 frame even shorter, right? And then now if you feel like you need to make it even shorter, then delete this, and then delete this, and then our peak is this thing, right? And then delete this, so it becomes even more shorter. And then even like keep doing this thing, like figure out the peak. Peak is this. So if you need to delete like 2 frames more, so delete 1 above this, 1 below this. That means delete 1 here, 1 here. So it becomes shorter, but then you don't mess up the animation. And now it's a little bit faster, but then it is working because we have figured out the stretch, squash, and everything. So it is working fine. And this thing would apply in any complex animation too. So that let's say if you have this thing and then we need to do a jump, and if you say like ball bounce is just too easy for me, and then if you need to do a jump, then that means that there would be a squash pose. So we are gonna create a squash pose. Let's just create a jump super quick. this is a squash pose, and let's create a stretch pose. Close the side. Let's create a stretch pose. This is a stretch pose, right? And then let's have one in the middle. Let's figure out the pose on the top, because this is the top pose. Figure out the pose on the top. So let's say it would be somewhat like this. Right. It's gonna be somewhat like this. So now let's do this thing. Now we have three poses. This is the squash, this is the stretch, this is the top pose. And how to implement the same thing that we did in a jump, in a mechanic shot, instead of just a ball bounce, because you might feel the ball bounce is just too easy. So now we are gonna do the same thing. See, we move from over here towards the top pose and keep on dividing in half. So this thing, we are not figuring out about the timing, we are not figuring about the posing, we not figuring out, we don't have to figure out what frame should we place this thing on, because we know it is going to be on 2. And then we are not figuring out where, how far would it be placed between these two things. And then once you are done with this thing, you can see this ball, right? So it would be exactly in the middle, exactly in the middle. And then it would move towards this thing, so it would be, again, it would be exactly in the middle. It doesn't take that long, like it isn't complex, but if you use those crazy terms, then it would complicate everything. So see, now it is getting better, it is moving towards that. Now again, one right in the middle, right in the middle. I can do a detailed demo on this later on, but then I'm just showing my point that it is not just a ball bounce, but then it applies to every animation, everything. You can do this for the complex stuff too, and it would work fine. This is just a rough, super quick demo. And then it would come down, go up, then it would come down. So we have the squash, it is going up into this position, and now we are done with this thing, like we did this thing, right? It is coming down, half. So now we have reached here, and now what we are gonna do this thing is we are gonna move from this thing, not from the top, but we are gonna move from this thing towards the top. So let's do this thing. It is fun, it is super fun. Let's say that let's go crazy with this thing. Let's say that he's for simplicity, let's say that his both the feet would be on the ground on this frame, just for the sake of simplicity. So obviously it would be a stretch pose. It would be a stretch pose like this stretch, and then we are moving halfway. We are moving halfway. So I'm not even figuring out what frame number do I wanna place this on, because I know I'm moving up and up and up and doing this half. And I hope you can see, like, this head and this head is exactly in the middle of this thing, and that's how I am figuring out. So see, I'm not moving from up to down, but I'm moving from down to up, like from this pose towards the extreme. From this pose, towards up. Keep doing this thing, this is fun. Mhm. Let's keep dividing this in half. And that's another thing, like if your ball bounce is working, then there's no way that this thing won't work. Like you have figured out the ball bounce, so this thing would work 100% of the time. There's no way, because we have figured out everything. I'm pretty sure. See, I haven't even like completed this, or I haven't like played this, but I'm pretty sure because I've played my ball bounce and it was working, so I knew that this would work. It has to work. Right? It has to work because I'm doing a demo, and it would be not good if it doesn't work. So yeah, let's play this thing out. And one more thing. So this comes down, this is the squash, and then we talked about this thing. Not exactly a squash, not exactly a stretch. And what is the purpose of this thing? The purpose of this thing is when it's squash and then it is gonna stretch, it is gonna drag. It is gonna drag. Not exactly a stretch. Not exactly a squash. Alright. Not exactly a stretch. Not exactly a squash. Okay, I'm done with this thing. So I can frame through this thing and then I can play this thing. So this was the base, and then we are moving up towards that, moving down towards this thing. See, if I turn off this ball bounce, obviously I haven't done this thing in on the top. This is just a demo. I'll do a complex demo of this thing. This is just a demo of timing and spacing, not the actual mechanics or anything. I can do that later on. But then now if we keep adding more frames towards this thing, so it would become like more polished version of that, because there's a little bit of jerk in the top, but that's just because we haven't like added these details in there, these like minute like moving up. But then again, it is same, like it is gonna be towards the end post, so you don't have to figure out what is like where you don't even have to figure out what it is gonna favor, because if we are moving towards up and we are dividing in half, then obviously it is gonna be towards up. It doesn't make sense to say that it would favor the top position because it is moving towards top, right? You didn't have to say that. And then you can go crazy, but I don't like want to get into this thing. But I'm just saying that this is like I'm just showing my point. This is like this. And then more frames you add towards the top, the more polished the animation get. See, now it is sticking on top, and then you can do the same thing for the bottom. And obviously this is a rough one, so it is not a polish or anything, but it is to show that it works. So I guess that's it. I hope this helps a bit.